The Pacific, as you might know, is an area with a lot of small island states that are isolated in many ways. They're geographically isolated. They're also isolated from domestic and regional markets. The introduction of improved ICT connectivity could potentially change that. At the moment, most Pacific Island states are dependent on satellites for telecommunication and for internet. By switching to broadband for telecommunication and internet, you could potentially achieve a number of things. You make internet and telecommunication services cheaper, and you improve the quality of those services. And that could do, in a region like the Pacific, that could do a number of good things from a development perspective. The development potential for ICT to be realized, a number of things need to be in place. You need to have the correct infrastructure. So in the Pacific, that would be mostly submarine broadband cables. You need to have regulatory frameworks in the telecommunication sectors that allow for competition and that allow for cost-based pricing. You need to have not only investments in infrastructure, but you also need complementary investments in ICT applications in key economic sectors. And last but not least, you need to raise awareness about the potential of ICT, not only amongst consumers, but also amongst policymakers and the business sector. So potentially improved ICT connectivity could really be a game changer in the Pacific. But in order to achieve that, a number of conditions need to be met. Last year, the board approved the sovereign part of a submarine cable project for the Solomon Islands. That's partly financed through a loan and a grant from the Pacific Department, and it's partly financed by commercial partners, and they are still in the process of finalizing their part of the project. The potential, for example, to introduce ICT-based improvements in service delivery are enormous. We're piloting at the moment now in Papua New Guinea in the health sector the use of mobile devices to transfer medical data, which would allow you to penetrate also in remote provinces. Again, education is another example. If you would be able to introduce distance learning modalities in a geographical setting like the Pacific, that would have potentially huge benefits. Two key reasons for our involvement is A, we're convinced of the development potential of these investments, and B, because we can leverage funds from the private sector and commercial lenders. One of the missing links. I think in the Pacific it could really be a game changer. But again, it's not magic. No? It's not just a question of laying cables and all our problems will be solved. You need all these aspects to come together: the infrastructure, the regulatory side, investments in applications once the ICT infrastructure is there, and awareness about the development potential of ICT. If that gets together, then it could really be something that could transform the Pacific. Yeah.